Donald Trump gave what might be his worst interview ever to a guy named Shawn Ryan, who describes himself as a former Navy SEAL and former CIA. I have never seen anything like this. And listen, I'm with you. That crazy Axios interview with Jonathan Swan during Trump's presidency, it was bad. The Chris Wallace interview, where he challenged Chris Wallace to a cognitive test and said he could do better on it than Chris Wallace, that was bad. The NABJ interview where he said Kamala Harris used to be Indian but became black, that was bad. This may be worse than all of it. I don't know much about Shawn Ryan, but he seems to be a pretty major Trump suck-up from what I gathered watching this interview. And right off the top, for all of the weeks now of saying, I know nothing about Project 2025, Trump signals that he will enact Project 2025, give himself total control by starting to purge the government of bureaucratic civil servants and putting instead loyalists in place. He calls it holding them accountable. We know what the code means.
Any government agencies, I have zero trust in our Congress and our Senate, anything. We have a government that's not functioning right now.
Yeah.
How are you going to gain the trust back of the American people within the government? And are we going to see anybody held accountable?
Yeah. The answer is yes on the second. They're going to be held accountable. They've got to be held accountable. What they're doing, they're destroying this country. They're crooked people. They're dishonest people.
What Trump is talking about here, it's really important not to mistake, because they always speak in code. They always speak in code. Shawn Ryan says he doesn't trust the government. He doesn't trust government departments or agencies. These are departments and agencies mostly staffed by career bureaucrats. They're not political actors. Do they vote in their personal lives? Sure, probably. They should, right? Nothing wrong with that. But they work for Democratic and Republican administrations. They are career bureaucrats. And Shawn Ryan says he doesn't trust them, that it's broken. Trump agrees and says they are going to be held accountable. Also, Trump's tie is tucked under his crotch. I know people will write to me and say, David, you didn't mention it. Trump's tie is tucked under his crotch and it looks crazy and the tie is too long, but who cares when Project 2025 is what's on the line here? Donald Trump, again, with another version of what his current position is on Roe v. Wade, says Roe v. Wade was bad. He got it out. And it's thanks to his Supreme Court picks that Roe v. Wade disappeared. This is relevant because it's, of course, true, even though now that they also recognize that the anti-abortion stuff is killing them electorally, they are pretending like they aren't so anti-abortion.
Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican wanted it. Roe v. Wade, you've heard this, was legally a very bad place to have it in the federal government for a lot of reasons. I got it out. 3 great justices that I put on voted, plus 3 other, in my opinion, great justices. And they got it out.
Every single woman and every single person who knows a woman or has ever met a woman or was born to a woman should remember what Trump just said in November. And of course, there's some of this playing both sides. You know, as Fred Trump III told us, right? There's really no sincere ideology here. It's what does Trump think will help him win? And what Trump thinks will help him win is when he's being interviewed by some Trump suck-up right-winger like Shawn Ryan, you go anti-abortion. And when you realize that you're losing ballot referenda and it will hurt you, then you go, oh, like J.D. Vance said over the weekend, we would never veto. We would veto a federal abortion ban. We wouldn't allow a federal abortion ban. It's whatever he can say at the time to get elected. But that arguably makes him more dangerous, not less. Trump brought up that only a stupid or mentally ill person would say what Trump said about members of the military, that they are suckers and losers.
Multiple times where the media has misconstrued some of the things that you say about veterans, the latest being supposedly you calling wounded veterans that have been shot or wounded, suckers and losers.
Yeah, a made-up story. It was made up by a magazine. And I think it was The Atlantic, which is a radical left magazine. And as soon as I heard it, I said, that's a terrible thing and you don't get rid of it. You know, they make these things and they just use it and use it. The opposing side, they know it's false. I had 26 people that said it never happened. Who would say it? Who would say it? Nobody would say it. A stupid person or a person that's mentally ill.
Well, maybe Trump is right. A stupid person or someone who's mentally ill, or maybe just a bad person, an ungrateful person, someone who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth or something like that. So listen, Trump's lying. Trump said it not only about those who were wounded, but about those who were killed. We have public statements where Trump has said essentially the same thing. He said about the late Senator John McCain, I prefer my war heroes who weren't captured. So the thing Trump is accused of saying in private tracks perfectly with things that Donald Trump said in public. And of course, many of the people Trump is listing who said he never said it weren't in the room when it supposedly happened. And John Kelly is on record very clearly in a very trustworthy way saying he said it. I was right there. Speaking of John Kelly, Trump says that he was a terrible, stupid person. I'm actually unsure whether this is a duplicate clip in part. Let's see.
But they make up stories. And then one guy who's a very sort of a low-life guy. He is a low-life. They got one confirmation, and 26 people said it never happened. But the one confirmation was a guy that I fired, a terrible, stupid person, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, every time Trump talks about all of the people he hired who were stupid and he had to fire, it directly undercuts his claim that he knows how to hire and is the best at hiring and only hires the best people. Certainly not the case. And finally, Trump going after climate change.
The biggest risk today, you know, when I hear these poor fools talking about global warming, they don't call it that anymore. They call it climate change because, you know, some parts of the planet are cooling. And
you know what's funny about that? For 25 years, Republicans have been saying they used to call it global warming, but now they call it climate change for marketing reasons. But it's been 3 decades that the term climate change has been identified as more accurate, because as Trump says, when he unknowingly is actually repeating the science. We're talking about increasingly erratic weather, record highs, record lows, etc. But they love this line. They used to call it global warming, but that didn't work, so they switched to climate change.
Warming, it didn't work. So they finally got it right. They call it, they just call it climate change. They used to call it global warming. You know, years ago, they used to call it global cooling. In the 1920s, they thought the planet was going to freeze. Now they think the planet's going to burn up. And we're still waiting for the 12 years. You know, we're down almost to the end of the 12-year period. You understand that, where these lunatics that know nothing, they weren't even good students at school. They didn't even study it. They said, we have 12 years to live. And people didn't have babies because they said, we only have another. No, it's so crazy. But the problem isn't the fact that the oceans in 500 years will raise 1/4 of an inch.
Notable environmentalist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has endorsed this man with those views that he just gave. I would argue the most disastrous interview that Donald Trump has ever given in a political context, if you really listen to the absurdity of what he's saying. Good for Shawn Ryan for getting him to do it. I don't know that the intent was to get Trump to look as absolutely batshit you-know-what. But he did it. He did it. Congratulations to him. Did you know that Americans pay twice as much for their wine as the rest of the world? The reason is because of laws that date back to Prohibition that ensure the right of wholesalers to make a big margin. It's actually insane, which is why I love our sponsor, Naked Wines, so much. Naked Wines is a subscription service that seamlessly connects you to the finest independent winemakers on the planet, so you get a case of the market's best quality wines, however often you'd like, for a fraction of the price you'd normally pay in stores. How does Naked Wines do it? Naked Wines connects winemakers and wine drinkers directly without the middleman, allowing for vineyard to your door delivery at up to 60% off of what you would pay in store. My girlfriend likes white wine. I like red. We'll split a case that has both, which Naked Wines makes very easy to do. You can customize your subscription precisely to your taste. So go to nakedwines.com/Pacman, Click enter voucher in the top right and enter Pacman for both the code and the password to get 6 bottles for just $29.99 with shipping included. That's $100 off and under $7 per bottle. The link is down below.